Oh, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. It is that time again. Mobeen, Tahir, and I, Chris Gannatti, Global Head of Research at Wisdom Tree, have another episode of The Next Big Thing. And I would say we are particularly excited. And the reason for that excitement is it's not every day that we are able to speak to a leading player in a particular thematic category. Today's thematic category is European defense. I would say one of the biggest topics so far in 2025. And one of the things we'll be able to delve into is, with many of these themes, you have sort of the current year or the next couple of months experience, and then you want to get a sense of the next 3, 5, 10 years and beyond. But we are joined by a special guest from Rheinmetall, Dirk Winkels, who is the head of investor relations. Welcome to The Next Big Thing, Dirk.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So one of the things to sort of ease us in the sense that we assume that you've had many experiences in your career that have kind of brought you to this point working at Rheinmetall, but we would love to help the audience just understand. I mean, what is it that you have done and your background that sort of led you to this remarkable position? I mean, there were many years there. I was in Europe from 2018 to 2022 as an example. And until the Russian invasion, I wouldn't say we were talking all that much about defense. And during some of those years, it was almost like the environment on the ground wanted to forget that there was even such a thing as defense and weapons, and was trying to seemingly move away from that. So a lot's changed, but I would love to hear a sense of your background, your experience, and how you've gotten into this particular position today.
Yeah, happy to walk you through some part of my CV. I joined the IR or the investor relations community in 2012 here when I was still at Lanxess, and my boss then was looking for somebody who has a broad background regarding operations and of financials. So since I was doing here controlling, I was in the development, strategic development of Lanxess, in the M&A department of Bayer. Before that, I had some attachment to the pure figures, but as well was able to tell stories and to explain the business to investors. And when I came here to Rheinmetall in 2016, storytelling was definitely a different thing. We were sharing our attention between CO2 emissions and maybe some additional orders from the German government. And now we are in a situation where we say, okay, this is going to be a pure defense play in just a couple of quarters time, and the automotive and the civil business is going to be history. So major change regarding the portfolio, major change regarding the attention, and a major change regarding the attention of the investor community here. We have seen that now over the last couple of months, we actually every month we had more interest from the investment community than the combined 2 years before. So I'm happy to have here a strong team behind me here that helps me to communicate the story to the market. So exciting times, yeah.
No doubt about it. I mean, the figure that Mobeen and I saw, and you never know when you're doing your research, because obviously we don't work at the company and we don't see any sort of non-public information. But the figure that I found on the website somewhere was 30 billion of orders sort of in queue or in sort of backlog. Basically signifying this incredible demand. So from this incredible demand, it as you rightly described, the level of investor interest that is attracted to that is basically off the chart relative to prior years. In thinking about the Rheinmetall of, say, July 2025, as we do this recording, given that a lot of these businesses, they focus on many different areas, many different categories. If you were describing to an investor the main sort of focal areas, the structure of Rheinmetall, just to get them at least thinking, because defense, it's such a broad category. There are so many different details. How would you align the thinking so that people are at least getting on the path of thinking about Rheinmetall in the most productive way?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Rheinmetall is now positioned here in the center of the defense demand with our portfolio very much geared towards army demand. Here, 85% of our sales are going into the army. We are known as a system house here for technical vehicles. We offer solutions to the customer, and we have the benefit that we have a really integrated portfolio where we do not only sell the ammunition, we sell the vehicles, the artillery systems, the main battle tanks area, which are obviously use the ammunition, but as well we have here the business which is offering the digital solutions for modern tank warfare. And we are offering here the solutions for the future with more and more demand regarding digitization of forces, creating more efficiency on the battlefield to improve the sensor to shooter chain on the battlefield, to improve the efficiency of Western armies. And that is what we are trying here, to provide the best equipment for Western armies and the best solutions to offer here the best equipment on the battlefield.
Dirk, I like what you said about storytelling in describing what you do, and one of the stories that's very relevant to the defense sector is this idea of Zeitenwende that we've heard in recent times, literally translating to, if I've got my my understanding of German correct, a turning point. And of course, we're talking about a term that was coined by the German Chancellor, or used by the German Chancellor in 2022, following the invasion of Ukraine, marking a new era where we're living in a time of new geopolitical realities. And then, of course, we've had President Trump, under whose presidency the impetus for Europe to develop its own defense capabilities has acquired further urgency. How do you see the significance of Zeitenwende, and how European governments have suddenly been uh, brought into action to expand their budgets and preparing for a new sort of reality that we live in? What does it mean for Rheinmetall?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the announcement of Zeitenwende in 2022 as a reaction of the invasion of Ukraine, with here the support of the Ukrainian forces with with money, but as well here improving the defense capabilities of European NATO countries was unprecedented. We had 30 years of underinvestment here in Germany. I mean, the German army was 12 divisions in the 1980s. Now we're down to 3 divisions. We had 3,000 main battle tanks at the beginning of the 90s. Now we're talking about 300. So there was definitely some benefit from saving on defense and spending it elsewhere. So American administrations have always asked to increase spending, but it actually needed here the catalyst of the invasion in Ukraine, that people were really having this moment of awakening and reacting. So some of the first reaction was the Zeitenwende with the then package what the German army really needs, and us presenting our idea what we can help with. So we had a pretty quickly a package prepared to offer to the German customer to just address the most urgent needs. And already then we said 100 billion would not be enough to bring the German troops to a fully equipped modern army. We are currently selling a lot of equipment in the existing structure. So without moving the next step to the increased army that NATO is requiring to bring the German army from something like 60% to 100% equipment level. And that has been here definitely move not only in Germany but as well in other regions where people realize they have aging equipment. They don't have enough equipment. A lot of the equipment that was given to the Ukrainians needs replacement now because it's just simply creating gaps that need to be filled again. And that is now the situation where we are asked to build additional capacities, to increase our output here, to quickly adjust here as an industry player to provide more solutions to the armies. Zeitenwende is a nice description. I think we had another Zeitenwende earlier this year when we saw the refocus of the US away from Europe, looking more into other areas, which then made the Europeans realize, okay, now it's getting serious because we really need to start spending here and keep here our industry players that they can actually help us to equip the armies here and to provide modern solutions for the Western armies. And that has then been the second driver with another acceleration of spending that we have just seen culminating last week in the 5% NATO demand target for 2035. And again, Germany announcing that they want to achieve the 5% here, or 3.5%, because it's a 3.5 plus 1.5% target already in 2029. And here the expectation is that second half of this year is going to see a significant acceleration of order inflow. We have by now, or by the end of Q1, more than 60 billion sitting in the backlog. And the expectation is that this is going to rise to more than 100 billion by the end of this year. For the next 12 months, we are expecting here up to 70 billion of orders led by Germany, but as well by other players here in Europe to add to our backlog.
Speaking of order backlogs, and you mentioned the point about looking to expand production capabilities, and something we saw that made headlines. It was quite interesting because it was a company that we also keep an eye on for other reasons, is Rheinmetall's partnership with Volkswagen, or Rheinmetall's interest in utilizing Volkswagen plants for production. I think it got a lot of people's interest because it can almost become a symbol of industrial repurposing in Europe. If Volkswagen doesn't need a particular plant because it doesn't need to make as many cars, maybe it can be used to make more military equipment by modifying the facility. Tell us more about that, because how does Rheinmetall repurpose a factory that was being used to make cars before into making military equipment? And is that something that was an opportunistic move because the opportunity was there, or is that a broader strategy to look more creatively into expanding production capabilities?
I mean, here time is of the essence. We need to speed up to build capacities here to be ready by the end of the decade. Here, if that what intelligence services are saying is true, that an attack might happen from the eastern side at the end of this decade. We have already started to repurpose our own civil plants. So we have two plants here in Germany, one in Berlin, one in Neuss, where we have started to shift the production of the civil products to international sites and to introduce here production of components or of systems for military purposes. Here, the benefit clearly is we can keep the plants, we can take advantage of the people here, which are well trained, which are familiar with the Rheinmetall culture, which we do not have to integrate. And it is relatively easy to capitalize on the experience, on the training, on the educational profile that they have, and use this for military purposes. The plant in Berlin is on a fairly progressed regarding the transition. The plant in Neuss is a little bit more complicated because here we are going or we are planning to build as well satellites in the joint venture with Finnish ICEYE, and even complete tactical vehicles solutions. So more complex production here compared to what we are doing in Berlin, but we're in a good way. With the automotive front, I think everybody is looking here at these fully automated assembly lines where then hundreds of Golfs or whatever Passats are leaving the plant. That is not the kind of plants we're looking for. Production of tactical vehicles is not very much automized here. We're talking about manufacturing here. We are still even in an increased demand situation when we're seeing thousands of tanks per annum. I mean, Volkswagen is producing thousands of Golf probably per day here, if not per half day here. I don't know what the output actually is, but this is in the thousands here, in the 100,000s, and fairly automated here. What we need is people who know their jobs, who have a very good understanding of the basic skills and capabilities here, but less assets here. So production for tanks, for example, is you need an empty building. You need some heavy lift equipment to enter here the turret systems, to enter the engines here, but it's not a very much automated business which requires specialized robots. It's manufacturing the pure sense. So teams will work on the tank here, will do the fitting of the electronics, will add all the components to the vehicle and build those in base, basically, from scratch to finish products. So the demands regarding what we are needing is more regarding the people or less than specialized equipment. And on the other side, obviously, the automotive industry is expecting to have a number of years ahead where they will have lower volumes here, facing stronger competition. And that is a good solution for them to avoid here restructuring costs and people stay employed.
Now, Dirk, as I sit in the U.S., the big discussion, or at least one of the big discussions, depending on the day, depending on the week, is bringing back U.S. manufacturing, and that might go in the direction of semiconductors. And the concept would be, oh, look at all the stuff they do in Taiwan. We want to do some of that, all of that, depending on who's speaking for the administration in the U.S. Similarly, they might decide on a particular week. It hasn't, knock on wood, it hasn't come up a lot recently, but a few months ago it was, oh, the iPhone. This is an important product. Let's make that in the U.S. So it's clear that it's easy to say and point to certain things, but then when you actually say, can this be done in the US? Do we have the right workers? Do the workers that we have even want to do this? In the US, that is a difficult question. Usually the answer is no, and then we have to use all these words to try to come up with a way that maybe it's maybe as opposed to no, even if we might know that it's actually a no. So when you're sitting in Germany and for instance have a base of workers that in the past maybe they were making internal combustion vehicles, and maybe those vehicles were being sent to China, but now China, as we see, is making a lot of electric vehicles, and Germany at least doesn't make as many electric vehicles relative to China. Now we have these people; they have certain skills. Are you indicating that these people, at least in theory, with some training, probably not zero training, can learn how to apply their skills to make tanks, which, from what you're saying, seem to require a lot more people than, say, what you would picture in say, a Tesla factory with robots doing all these different things?
But I mean, when our guys are talking about their product, they are referring to cars. So that's the similarity starts already in the language they're using, and basically whether it's tracked or wheeled here, it's a vehicle which follows the same idea here. Obviously, a turret is more complicated here and needs a special component, but this is already done by different departments here in our plant. But the pure assembly business is a business that can relatively easily been with some training, and here it helps that they have a very good basic level of training can be learned, and we have done this already in Berlin, and we're very confident that this can be repeated here in Neuss, and that we can have that as well here in other plants, where we simply take the benefit that in Germany typically the workforce is on a very high level of training and has a very good command of the basic skill set here. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you need to watch out here. You have different dimensions here. A tank definitely is bigger than a light vehicle, but the concept is very similar, and the required skills are very similar.
And something in the course of looking into the background, one of the things Mobeen and I try to do is sort of see these intersections of different thematic topics. And something that I found in the sort of preparatory research was in thinking about. So we've been talking a lot about tanks. Another thing that I saw Rheinmetall does an awful lot of is the ammunition. And one of the things that I personally get excited about in the venue of AI and computer vision and image recognition, which is a bit different than, say, large language models and ChatGPT and the stuff getting all the attention recently, is this concept of if you need to make thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of a particular thing, it could be small batteries, it could be bullets, it could be sort of larger ammunition rounds that might go in the direction of a tank. There's this concept of detecting, excuse me, the defective units at the earliest possible time, so that your worst case is obviously you send a round out and it doesn't work in the heat of battle. That's obviously your worst case. But I was curious if Rheinmetall was seeing a benefit, not from AI doing everything, but from AI being used in certain areas, potentially in this concept of defect detection when you're, for instance, trying to ensure the highest possible yield on making the rounds that might go into these tanks that we were just talking about.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, if you look at the current quality inspection here, if a shell enters here the new plant, it's getting checked for 32 data points here. So there's a lot of quality here in inspection to make sure that the round actually goes out at the right end of the barrel here. So I think here with now the higher output, we need to have a look at here processes which take advantage of AI capabilities and of higher automation here in order to facilitate here the growth. We are obviously already incorporating here artificial intelligence, and you mentioned picture recognition here in our products here. Whether it's for medical purposes or for friend throw recognition, it's basically the same semiconductor using the same skill set here. Because for the engine, it's just pixels that we have to recognize. And here we are already in a very progressed level of using artificial intelligence for the product itself. But I completely agree with you. We need now to see whether we can here introduce artificial intelligence or, let's say, more automated ways in the production and the preparation of production. And quality inspection is definitely an area where I could see that.
It's interesting. We speak about artificial intelligence, and we've been speaking about the automotive industry as well. And I was looking at how you have a very fascinating suite of autonomous ground systems as well.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the automotive industry, as far as autonomous driving is concerned, it's a concept that's been quite elusive. It's been quite challenging. The reasons cited are that, look, a road is a very complex environment. Going towards autonomous driving is a big challenge, and the automotive industry uh, has has seen so much delay in that journey that now we're at a point where expectations are very low, and any progress is seen as a positive surprise. But you've got a range of solutions there. I was looking at Rheinmetall's Mission Master family of autonomous vehicles, which again are designed to operate in very complex environments in adverse weather conditions, and challenging uh, terrains and so forth. Tell us about how Rheinmetall has until now approached this journey or navigated this journey towards autonomous vehicles, and what lies ahead.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, our mission masses do ride in terrains where no Google car has ever driven here. So the level of details in uncharted terrain is huge, and you need to cope here with a different situation because Google Maps is of no use when they're in the middle of a uncharted terrain, obviously. So here the algorithms need to be very smart, and you need to have the sensors on board here. I think here Rheinmetall has proven in some early contests that the product is very sophisticated, that it can compete against other products in the market. And by now we have seen here a number of tests already being done with different armies around the globe here to test those vehicles under real life circumstances. So these unmanned ground vehicles here, they're used for logistical purposes, for soldier evacuation, but as well as mules to help soldiers in the battlefield is one thing. Another topic definitely is autonomous ride for logistical vehicles. Here, all armies are concerned that the demographics are against them, that they need more soldiers doing sophisticated stuff rather than sitting in a convoy and following the lead the truck. So that is a topic that we're following. We have here our own development center. Mira is the company which is developing autonomous vehicle, and we have done already test rides here in some of the German cities with our fully autonomous vehicles. That is a topic as well where the automotive industry is suggesting to cooperate here to use existing systems here for military purposes here. So there are a number of examples where there can be some cooperations between the defense and the automotive industry. But we have already started to do this here quite some time ago, and so far the feedback from trials from contests have been very comforting that we have good solutions in that area. Otherwise, we would not be invited to trials with the armies.
For sure, and it's interesting because you mentioned this new technology of autonomous vehicles, certainly. But then on the other hand, you have traditional technologies like tanks, and we've talked about main battle tanks. You mentioned that term earlier. Uh, Traditionally seen as symbols of old school warfare, but the way Rheinmetall seems to approach even main battle tanks is quite different. I was quite fascinated by the term tanknology on the website. The idea that it's not just a tank, but it's thinking about how can we digitize a tank, and of course, probably the operators of the tank don't have access to Google Maps either, but they've got some sort of a digital system that they are utilizing. And Rheinmetall calls that tanknology, and it highlights that yes, they are lethal, but they are digitized, and that is what gives them the edge. I'm curious what tanknology is and how that compares to old school traditional tanks of the past.
Yeah, I mean, technology involves everything here, from mobility to protection to lethality of the vehicle. You need to offer here a solution which is able to bring your troops to the front, which is able to protect troops adequately, but as well to offer here efficient solution here from either whatever effector you might want to use, a gun system, or here missile, whatever. All these components need to be here fit to help the soldiers do their job. And technology or technology here is really everything from mobility to protection level to the gun system here, and combine that. Digitization is definitely a new era where we are contributing. We have in the portfolio a number of sensors which help to create here higher levels of intelligence on the vehicle itself. So not only data being sent to the vehicle, but as well sensors which can identify threats, which can help to have night vision here, for example, radar solutions here. These kind of things are a part of our portfolio and can all be integrated into our 100% vehicle, like Panther, like Lynx, where we have here now very modern digitized solutions on the battlefield.
Now, in thinking of something along a similar line, this idea of sensors, this idea of all these new sources of information, and if you can deal with that information in a productive way, you might understand what's going on in a more cohesive and more productive way than the enemy. On the U.S. side and our U.S. audience, one of the things that they probably saw in recent weeks were headlines indicating a partnership or some sort of joint relationship between Rheinmetall and Anduril. And Anduril on the US side, I mean, there are probably today in July 2025 few private companies that are viewed in as exciting a light as Anduril. Anecdotally, when we hear people talking about thematics and we hear the various degrees of interest and indications of interest in people trying to gain exposure in whatever way they can to these private companies, Anduril is at or near the top of that list. So it certainly got a lot of attention, and was just curious to allow you to sort of detail how you're working with this exciting private company.
I mean, if you look at Europe here, one thing is clear: time is of the essence here. So we don't have time to start developing here the product for the next decade here, because at the end of the decade we have already a goal to be able to defend ourselves. So we have now 5 years to get ready for that goal. So we are looking here for solutions which are available in the market, which are of superior quality, and definitely Anduril is here a disruptive player in the defense business, not only regarding the product, but as well regarding the production process. And here we are convinced that a partnership with Rheinmetall and Anduril offers a great opportunity to participate in growth in Europe. Europe is now asking to keep 65% of defense spending within Europe. So non-European companies need to access the market in a certain way, and the only way is to create here a European, let's say, call it outlet platform. And definitely our approach here to partner is here benefiting all involved parties. The customer gets a state-of-the-art solution in a very timely manner. We have the access to the market, and we have a good understanding of the industrialization. And our partners, and it's not only Anduril here, Lockheed as well, have super products here which are already being produced and are available for industrialization in Europe.
And in looking at it, because I like how you're clearly mentioning the 5-year roadmap where various goals are staked in the ground, where we need to be towards 2030. Uh, what could you say to help people? Because essentially one of the things they'll see is they'll see this huge number of, say, orders, backlog, et cetera, coming in, and that'll, of course, be reported, and everybody will see that. So there's that initial excitement, man, the demand is there. But in sort of helping people to think about what happens next in terms of
Yeah.
how is the process going of sort of fulfilling that demand? What are, say, the key stories, metrics, measures that people should be looking at to get that realistic view of, yes, it's exciting, yes, the spending is there, the demand is there, the orders are coming in, and yes, we are seeing very positive things in terms of the fulfillment, which obviously comes in the future now and the future years as we continue to move forward.
Yeah, as I said, time is of the essence, and we demonstrate that we are able here to offer very timely solutions. Here, one of the biggest demands in the market is within artillery. So there is a big shortage of artillery rounds. Stocks are completely empty. Ukraine is asking for 3.5 million rounds in wartime here, so that is 10,000 rounds a day they would like to have here as available supply. And we said very early in the process, look, guys, we are ready to here embark on that expansion road. And last year we signed the contract with, or even before we signed the contract, actually, we had a groundbreaking in our main plant in Unterlüß here for 200,000 rounds artillery shells production here. The groundbreaking was in February last year. We visited the plant 2 weeks ago with a group of 20 investors who could see that actually the plant is ready. The plant is already producing, still small volumes here, and that everything is already fully operational here. So we have here the capabilities to design the plants. We have the capabilities to manage the expansion programs, and the blueprint that we have created for this big plant now in Unterlüß serves as a paste and copy approach for all the other plants we're creating here in Europe. I mean, I would say probably 15 months from groundbreaking to production is fairly record here, and some other countries might be a little bit more lengthy. We had the benefit of using here a brownfield environment, so there was infrastructure available here, but still, it's a huge plant. Here we have a shell production side, which is still in the finalization step. It's from a dimension, it's massive here. But the level of automation here is unprecedented here. The other plants that we are having are far less automated than these new plants. Level of people that we are needing here is very, very low. And again, I think here the proof of the pudding is we are able to act here very, very quickly and come with solutions here. So we have a ramp up process here this year, next year, and by 2027, we want to have here a full shot capacity of 1.5 million rounds. That makes us here the biggest producer in for artillery rounds. And the expectation is that we can really benefit from this paste and copy approach here, using our own internal design authority here, and then create further capacities where we are contracting with new customers. The beauty of the deals is that we are not building capacity to win market share. We are building capacities to honor contracts. So we get prepayments from the customer here, which helps us with the capex and which helps us with the operating working capital.
Your message, Dirk, that time is of the essence is delivered very loud and clear. And of course, the point being that joint ventures help make progress along that. And we've talked about the Volkswagen venture, we've talked about Anduril. Another thing that stood out to us was the partnership with Leonardo, and that it is slightly different in the sense that we're talking about two existing strong defense giants of the European industry, and uh, of course both have slightly different set of products, but we're talking about a partnership coming together and bringing those two giants of the industry together. I imagine the way such a partnership happens is of course different compared to a partnership with Anduril and Volkswagen. Uh, but given how European governments are increasingly, it seems like talking about making more collaborative decisions on defense. Do you see this sort of partnership between existing European defense giants happening more in the future as we realize that time is of the essence and we need to explore all possible options? How's that partnership going, and what do you see going forward?
Yeah, we are convinced that this is a very suitable approach here to form joint ventures. We have done that a number of times in the recent times. You mentioned Leonardo. We have joint ventures with Volkswagen. We have joint ventures with BAE. It is a quicker approach. We think that it has certain advantages compared to straight M&A, but we have done M&A as well. So these are this is part of our toolbox to further growth. I mean, we're growing organically very strongly with additional plants here across the entire portfolio, but we are growing as well significantly via M&A. So straight M&A was definitely a big driver for the expansion in the weapon ammunitions business, the acquisition of Expal in 2023, and then the additional capacity on top of that here only can take us to that leading market position, as well as here acquisitions like in the US with Lock Performance, which we, by the way, finance out of available cash without going to the market to raise here additional money or additional funds. And I think here we were required to offer here a solution to demonstrate manufacturing readiness to continue the down selection process for the big projects in the US, XM30 and CT2, the infantry fighting vehicle program, and the truck program. And that was here in that case here for us the better solution to buy the business here rather than partner. We initially thought about partnering. We still have a team for each program, but to have a better command here of the supply base, we were convinced that M&A was the better solution. So we're flexible. The toolbox is relatively big.
And that makes a lot of sense. I think if you read a headline which talks about Rheinmetall partnering with Leonardo or Anduril, it almost makes sense just by reading the headline that this is intuitive, and these companies operate in the same realm. One partnership which wasn't necessarily intuitive and quite interesting was the one with Nokia, because it's not necessarily the first name that comes to mind when we talk about defense partnerships, but of course it makes a lot of sense. Like you were saying, information needs to be sent to the tank, and then the tank manages and processes that information as well. But that process of sending information to the tank is all about connectivity, and perhaps the modern battlefield is as much about connectivity as it is about the firepower. Tell us about the strategic thinking behind partnering with a telecommunication company, and is this a sub trend in the defense space that we should be paying attention to, defense and connectivity and communication?
Yeah, I think digitization and the improvement of the efficiency along the sensor to shooter chain is key and a key element of our product development as well. So it's not only Nokia, it's ICEYE in the satellite business, for example, BlackNet in the algorithm and software development. So all these are part of our campaign to improve and to offer here digital solutions for the army. And I think this is something that we are going to see more in the future. Western armies are designed and set up here to have well protected, well equipped troops, but they have limited number of forces, so they need to make the best out of their resources. So creating an efficiency here to take advantage about data dominance on the battlefield is key, and there we need to integrate here capabilities outside our own portfolio, outside our own capability offering.
Now, Dirk, something that certainly comes up on our end as we speak to all different sorts of investors all over the world, maybe not as much in some of my U.S. based conversations, but when I'm speaking to investors in Europe, and there's been a bit of a shift. So it's not like everything just stays the same as time goes on, but in certain markets of Europe, there is still a bit of concern, let's call it, when it comes to sort of thinking about war and weapons and investing in the makers of weapons or the enablers of some of these more violent sorts of things. As someone who sits in the chair of investor relations and communications for a defense-oriented company, I'd love to hear your perspective on if you're sort of seeing changes in how investors might be becoming more open to the fact, and you see this sometimes in proximity to Russia. Like when I'm traveling in countries that share a border with Russia, it almost never comes up. If I get a bit farther away from Russia, it might come up more. This idea of not necessarily wanting to invest in the makers of certain kinds of weapons. I'd be curious to see if you're seeing shifts or changes in how particularly European investors are viewing this type of thing.
So I think the top ESG question that I get is, when does Europe invest into defense industry here? And that was definitely in the last years a key concern about of American or Anglo-American investors. That has now changed here. Europe regulation or European regulation has changed. So Article 8 funds can now invest into defense. We have seen that the investment policy of a number of key players here in the financial market has been changed. In Germany, basically all of the major houses are now able to invest into defense stocks. We did a roadshow in the Scandies last year, and they said, well, we are able now to invest from October 1st here because we have ESGD, so meaning ESG defense categories here. And the conversations that we're having have changed dramatically, because in the past we didn't have any conversation because exclusion strategy doesn't allow them to talk to us here. And today we're talking about product portfolios. We're talking about ethical topics. So it's a completely different quality of communication and conversation that we're having now with ESG investors. And this is a very frequent topic here that we are having with the ESG back offices here, especially from the European players.
And I know in the beginning of the discussion, you briefly mentioned, probably in the context more of vehicles, the idea of the carbon emissions. And I remember around the time I started working with Mobeen, and Wisdom Tree is a big sort of commodity player globally, and we focus on energy storage and all these kind of topics, and it felt like the industry and the investment market was going in a direction where not only did you have to, be pro battery and energy storage, but then you had to have a view on how the energy was being created that was going into the battery, and if that energy was being created using a fossil fuel, or if that energy was being created in a sort of carbon neutral way, and you had, sort of your level 1, your level 2, your level 3 sorts of emissions. And I was just wondering, it's felt to us like a lot of those discussions of the carbon emissions multiple levels down have not been as loud lately. And I was just wondering, from your perspective on, the side of a defense company, are people as curious about those things as they once were, or are they, focused on other sorts of more pertinent details?
So the focus of the defense of the civil business was to reduce carbon emissions and to improve the efficiency of internal combustion engines. We were looking into hydrogen power drive, into battery power drive, but the market didn't care. That did not matter to ESG investors. If you're selling to the automotive industry, here, if you optimize the engine and reduce here CO2 output or whatever was of concern, it did not matter here. Today, with the current share of around 20% of the civil business of the group's sales, we are not even discussing the civil business anymore. The only question we get regarding the civil business is, what is the timeline for the disposal?
So Dirk, as we were studying the business of Rheinmetall, and I was trying to see if how can I find similarities. And one similarity I found between Rheinmetall, of course, very different business operating in the defense space, and Wisdom Tree's business was there's a very wide suite of products. Of course, Rheinmetall is making defense products, and we often have to talk about a very wide range of financial products. Now, when you operate a wide range of products, it's a balance between an art and a science, in the sense that where do you focus? Sometimes you want to incrementally improve and grow a certain range of products, and then you want to be thinking outside the box and be creative and come up with entirely new ranges of products. And of course, with Rheinmetall's products, we've talked about both things. We've talked about how technology is transforming existing technologies, but then we've got autonomous systems which are completely new. When you think about, as a company, your product suite and what are the next areas of growth, and where the company should focus on and where to find ideas, how do you approach that? How do you strike that balance between making creative new innovations and growing the existing set of things that you already have?
I mean, from the outside, it might look like our portfolio does not have that many common things. But if you really have a look at the different components of our portfolio, there is a strong relation. I mean, if you produce the round, which goes through the barrel, which sits on the turret, which follows the sensor here, you can see a clearly red or a clear train here, which goes from the round to the actual sensor, and we have all that in the portfolio here. So when we know that the barrel behaves different with the gun, with the ammunition, we can change the ammunition or we can change the gun here. We know, for example, if you are currently using the 120-meter system versus the most modern Russian tank, it might not be powerful enough. So we have to have the next step change to the 130-millimeter gun. Before, we could increase here the performance of the tank by just having a more powerful round here. But at a certain point, that has to change. Now, the gun needs to target here the enemy. So if you have better night vision, if you have better radar, if you have better sight system, that is then improving here your fighting performance here. So it all plays together. So from that perspective, I think it is very much linked together. And now we are adding smaller pieces of the puzzle to follow the development here. I mean, 5 years ago, nobody was talking about drones here. Today, everything is about drones, and we don't need any tanks anymore. We can just manage with drones. I mean, we all know that's not true. You still need drones. We are developing drones which have tanks which have drone capabilities, either fighter or reconnaissance drones, and we have our drone fighter capabilities with the Sky Ranger system, which is a gun-based air defense system capable to shoot down entire drone swarms. Because again, we have the ammunition, which is very special, which can be programmed. We have the gun, which actually programs the round, and we have the sensors, which fits the information into the gun to then decide where the round needs to explode in order to kill the drone swarm. So it's all very much linked together. But at the same time, we have started as well to look at the drone business here. We acquired EMT 2 years ago. Here we developed from those reconnaissance drones, now fighter drones. And it's a process here. To a certain extent, we are following the market and following trends, but at the same time, we are anticipating trends. I mean, obviously, the main ground combat system will offer a revolutionary tank in the 2040s. Well, that's still 20 years to go. And we will have a demand for the next 20 years for main battle tanks with or without drone components here. And the Panther is our answer to that to that demand. Drones obviously are now able to attack very expensive vehicles from the top. So you need to offer a solution that they are protected. Those cages might work, but they're, well, at least they are not very eye pleasant here. So having a better solution to better protect the troops is part of a future main battle tank. So top attack systems need to be developed. So that all follows here the logic of war, the development on the battlefield.
Dirk, I love that sort of synopsis and overview as we sort of get to the point where, unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of just continuing on for hours and hours, as I know I would love to, and Mobeen would love to do. And it's a great point. I recently went to an event in Washington, D.C., and various defense players were there. And it's amazing how the context that you look at the world through sort of shapes a lot of what you see people talking about. In Ukraine, the drones got a lot of successful hits on the target, and certain constituencies you could see at this event were basically almost saying, let's do everything as drones, drones in the water, drones under the water, drones in the air, drones, drones, drones. This idea of many, many things that individually are less expensive, that was getting the full popularity. And then more recently, what did we see? We saw these extremely expensive, giant bombs that needed to be dropped in certain, deep things within Iran to affect the nuclear program, and dropped from stealth bombing planes. So completely different. So it reminds us that depending on the problem, you need different tools in the toolkit. And there's probably not, say, a single, because once you have a single thing, then obviously what does the enemy do? They're going to do something that counters that single thing. So in a way, you almost need all the capabilities, which as you were answering that question, that's a lot of what it made me think about. Now, like I said, we have to kind of wind down here. And to clarify, the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of Wisdom Tree and Rheinmetall and are subject to change. Anything we present in this podcast is not intended to be relied upon as a forecast, research, nor as investment or tax advice. The information and opinions expressed in this podcast are not a recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any securities, and reliance upon them is at the sole discretion of the listener. Please remember, past performance is no indication of future results. I want to thank Dirk and Rheinmetall for joining us today. I want to thank Mobeen, our Director of Macroeconomic and Thematic Research. for helping and for making this discussion possible and making it very impactful. I'm Chris Gannatti, Global Head of Research, and we are looking forward to a full slate of remarkable episodes to come on the Next Big Thing podcast as 2025 continues. Everyone, thank you again and take care.